Hi, Sandrine.
Hi, Mike. Long time no speak. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very,
Good.
very good too.
Holger, are you there?
I am. Hi there.
Hi. Have you got video, or are you restricted?
Oh yeah, my camera is out of commission right now. So
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, I've got to replace it. Seems like there's a little shortage on decent webcams right now.
There's a shortage on everything right now, Holger, believe me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just to remind you guys, and I'll remind anybody else joining us, that we are recording this session and all subsequent sessions. So if anybody misses one particular session, then they can pick it up from the Alliance Best Practice website. So just be aware that it's being recorded. I'm hoping that's okay for everybody. You don't have any problems with that, Holger? Are you okay with that?
Absolutely okay with that.
Great. Sorry, yes, Sandrine.
Apologies. I was going to ask, is that something that we can keep as support? So if we want to refer.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Oh, that's great.
Sure.
Fantastic.
By all means, keep it as support. But I mean, I'll explain when the other guys join us. I run my training the way I would like to be trained, and that doesn't mean that I sign up for a webinar, I get 60 minutes to the dot and nothing more. You know, if you have a problem or if you have an issue, I'd be very happy for you to pick up the phone and say, can we have a one-to-one? Can we have a face-to-face? I've got an issue with stage 3. I'm not quite sure what to do next, or whatever it is. I'd much prefer you to be actively using the system and actively using the approach and being successful with it than not being able to use it properly, or not being able to understand something. And actually just discussing it with someone is always a lot better.
Got you. No problem. Thanks.
So I thought I was being quite reasonable and quite clever by restricting the class sizes on these courses to 10 people. And so I restricted the class size to 10 people, and people start to register. And then as people started to register, equally, they started to say, oh, I didn't realize it was that time. I can't make it then. Or, oh, there's 4 people that have registered from a company called Lumen. And they were saying, well, we're all from the UK. Can we do it face to face next month? So gradually, as the event has approached, the numbers have dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. So I should have 8 people on this call. 8 people had confirmed that they'd accepted the invitation and were going to attend. Whether we get that or not, I'm not entirely sure. But what I suggest is we just get cracking, and if people join, then they join when they join. Hi, Liz.
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon for you.
Have you got? Yes, it is. It's afternoon for us. Have you got access to video?
I do. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm in
So
Chicago.
let's get started, guys. So the entire course is 7 sessions. And the following 6 sessions all focus on a stage in the VST methodology. VST standing for Vision, Skills, and Trust. And so we go into detail in each of the 1-hour sessions on each of the individual stages. So one thing to bear in mind is it might be useful for you if you thought about a particular relationship that you were keen to improve. You picked hopefully a strategic or an important relationship, and then you use that as the guinea pig for this methodology, so that as we went through each stage, you could run that stage with your partner. Now, of course, that doesn't mean to say that you're going to share with the rest of the people in the public group any commercial details or any sensitive details about that partnership. You won't do that. That's absolutely fine. But having something practical and having something real for you to be able to try out will make the training that much more valuable, because you'll be able to use it immediately following the session. There's 7 sessions because I have always found that it's useful, before I dive into the detail, to get an overview of what we're trying to achieve and to get some kind of understanding of the direction we're moving in and what I'm likely to be able to achieve out of the session. So that's what this session is all about. We've booked an hour. If it runs on for longer than an hour, and if that's what people want, that's fine. If it takes less than an hour and people are happy with that, that's fine as well. So with that in mind, before we get into the overview and start discussing things, I thought it'd be useful if we could just introduce each other. So I think most of you on the call, but it'd be useful if you could introduce yourself to each other. So if we go clockwise round as it appears on my screen. So Sandrine, do you want to introduce yourself to the other guys and explain who you are, where you're from, and why you're interested in the course?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, I'm Sandrine Cox. I'm based in the UK, just outside London in Windsor, and I'm head of alliances for EMEA for Varicent. Varicent is what we call an SPM solution provider, software vendor for sales performance management solutions, anything from sales planning, territory quota planning, with forecasting with AI and so on. So the reason why I've chosen to attend the course with Mike is because I'm quite new into the proper role of alliances. I've been doing it all my career. By default, that's what I've been doing, but I've never learned best practice. And that's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build my knowledge, the process, the methodology, to emulate what some of our partners, major GSIs, are doing in the industry, and be able to be a chameleon and work together properly, such as Capgemini, Accenture. I know they're using this methodology, so something I want to learn. I'm also looking to learn from other practitioners, maybe who've been through the same process as me.
Great. Thank you, Sandrine. Who's next? Holger, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Holger Meyer, and I'm a chief technologist for our alliance with Accenture. And I'm actually relatively new to alliances. I'm originally from Germany and lived in the US for 22 years now, based in Montana. And so the reason I'm attending is to get more familiar with alliances. I've actually been in this role. I've been part of direct sales and some other technical roles for quite a while. So I've been in the IT industry for close to 30 years. But alliances is very new to me. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Thanks, Holger. Liz.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Elizabeth. I'm based in the US here in Chicago. I am Canadian though, so I just moved from Canada a year ago. I've been in the technology space probably for the last 7 years now, starting off in business development, into direct sales, and now leading the alliances practice at Avalara, and managing our partnership with NetSuite, who's now under Oracle. And so similar to what was said earlier, maybe with Sandrine, I came into this role. I've been now 3 years managing the partnership with NetSuite. And then I used to work at NetSuite in a direct selling role. I came in with no prior background or best practices, but definitely have figured it out, but would love to, I think, bridge the gap. That's what interested me in the topic of really trying to close the loop and drive sales in this capacity. I think that's where there's definitely a challenge and a gap where it's just harder to quantify our efforts and tie them back to revenue and, close one business. So I brought this to my leadership, and, I think everyone was definitely on board with trying to gain a better understanding of, Mike, how you've brought this methodology to and seen the success you have with a lot of those bigger players in technology. So eager to learn and hopefully bring this back to my team of 50 people.
Okay, great. Thank you. Frank, nice to see you again. Would you like to introduce yourself to the rest of the group?
Okay, so my name is Frank Rameau. I'm a bit older, but 57 years old. I'm actually a practitioner of Allianz since 14 years, and the last The first course I have with Mike was more than 10 years before. So the reason I'm here is a refresh regarding where we are on the Alliance today, because even if we practice a lot on a daily basis, it's always good to stop and to see what are the new features or something that could be improved, because you always go in a comfort zone and you always have to remind that there are others area to explore. So Holger, nice to see you. I was Microfocus a year ago.
Say that again, Frank.
I was Microfocus a year ago in France.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, I've got the.
Reporting to Nigel.
Oh yeah, I work with Nigel. Yeah,
say hi to him.
I will.
So I think what the introductions have revealed is fairly telling, and it's also quite depressing if I allow myself to become depressed. I look at the world and I look at LinkedIn and I see salesmen being hired, and there is a mass of different sales courses that they can attend. There's Miller Hyman, there's Huthwaite, there's Spin, there's Taz, there's Challenger, there's any number of different sales courses. And also they can become certified in some of those processes, some of those methodologies, which helps them if they're going for another sales job. You know, I am Huthwaite trained, or I have my Challenger level 3 certification or whatever. And try as I might, I can't find any Alliance sales training courses that really match what I would regard as sensible training. And I've been looking now for the past 10 years. And so that really is why I developed, well, in fact, I developed VST, Vision, Skills and Trust, the methodology that I'm going to explain to you. I developed it for originally IBM. My thinking started, funnily enough, with Capgemini, probably about the time that Frank was there. I was working with a gentleman there called Patrick Nicolet, and Patrick, I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning that his internal nickname was the Swiss Panzer. So he didn't take no for an answer, and he didn't allow counter arguments to stop him. He just powered on through like a Panzer tank. And he'd been researching alliances on the website, and he called me up and he said, I've been made head of sales and alliances for Capgemini, reporting to the CEO at the time, Paul Hermelan. And my job is to get Capgemini using solid, sustainable processes. And so for sales, I've picked Holden, Holden. Their tagline is "Find the Fox." And so everybody in Capgemini who's a salesman is going to use Holden. If they don't, I'm going to sack them. As I said, he was a Swiss Panzer. He said, what we haven't got is an alliance sales system. And so I worked with Patrick for about 9 months developing an early version of VST. Now, as well as being the Swiss Panzer, Patrick was also an extremely canny Swiss gentleman. So when it came time to brand this new offering, it wasn't called the Alliance Best Practice Sales System. It was called the Capgemini System, Collaborate to Win. So if you Google Collaborate to Win, you'll find that round about the mid to late 90s, Capgemini started using a systematic way of partnering with their partners. And the result was that they were more successful in securing the right partners, but also in securing joint partnering sales opportunities. So much so that Atos rang me up and invited me to attend one of their executive board meetings. And they had one question for me, which was, what is Capgemini doing? Because they keep beating us on joint bids. So the instigation of this system was, well, let me share my screen and I can share some slides with you. If I share that, You should be able, I think, now to see my screen. Is that correct? Yep, you can see the screen. Okay, so this particular module for the next 45 minutes, and by all means ask questions or make interjections as we go. I wanted to try and make these classes small so that people could get involved, could make their own comments, could reflect how that would help them in their situation. So please feel free to do that. So what we're going to cover in this session is the nature of an alliance sale. What do we mean by an alliance sale? How does an alliance sale differ from other kinds of sales? What is the alliance best practice framework? We talk about best practices in alliances, but what does that actually mean? What is the framework, the structure? How can you use the framework? And then obviously, what is VST? How do I use it? And how do I get started? So what is an alliance sale? Yeah, sure.
Just asking, maybe you had already covered this, I was a few minutes late, but what's the best way to digest the content? Should we take notes as we go? Will you be distributing the slides? Are there handouts that we can print, or what have you seen to be successful?
So I haven't, sorry, let me answer the question directly. So first of all, will you have access to the slides? Yes, of course. Secondly, as we go through the course, I'll be talking about certain activities that you should perform to complete certain stages. And to help you complete those activities, there'll be templates, there'll be guidance documents, there'll be briefing sheets, there'll be assessment tools. I would call all these things tools, alliance best practice tools. And so following this initial overview session, I'll be signing you up to the Alliance Best Practice website, where we have a database, and you can download whatever you like from the database. And if, when we're in a session, you feel that you need a particular document and you can't find it, or if the document doesn't exist for some reason, I'll create it and allow you to download it. But don't let that stop you making any notes that you might want to make. I know different people learn in different ways. If you feel the need to make some notes, please feel absolutely free. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So let's talk about what is our goal. What are we trying to achieve? So if you look at this very, very simple graph here, you've got two axes. This axis shows the return on effort, generally regarded as revenue. So in the high-tech space, the purpose of alliances is sales. You want to sell more of your products or services or a combination thereof. It's as simple as that. The difference is that instead of selling it to a customer, you're going to work with a partner to jointly sell your products and services and their products and services to the end customer, to the consumer. Now, if you can find a way of doing that, which gives you a very high commercial return for a very low degree of effort, measured in terms of time or effort, then go for it. It's a fantastic model, because it means you don't have to do much work and you get massive revenue return back. Now, you could argue that a channels model is that kind of a model. In a channel model, you don't have to spend a huge amount of time and effort talking to the partner, explaining to the partner what you do, what your products do, what your services do, helping them with technical problems. Basically, they are just a channel for you to sell your products and services to market. So if you can find this kind of return, high return, this kind of area, high return, low effort, then by all means exploit it. But, and it's a big but, I think you might agree with me, that's not real life. Real life is that if you really want the high revenue returns, if you're talking about a major enterprise deal, many hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe even into the millions of dollars, if it's that level of revenue, typically it comes with an accompanying degree of reasonably high effort. And so you end up with a natural area here of alliances. And alliances means that you're going to work together with a key partner to be successful. Now, if you're a software company or if you're a hardware company, typically the reason you'd work together with, let's say, a service provider, an SI, a GSI, or an advisory company is because that organization typically advises the board of the customer you're trying to sell to. Maybe they have a particularly predominant or strong position. So Accenture, Capgemini, DXC, IBM, Global Business Solutions, Infosys, Wipro, etc. They all have key account managers at a very high level whose job it is to advise major clients on what type of technology that client should use. And your goal is to get those people to recommend you, not just when you're talking to them, but when you're not in the room. That's an important distinction. You want to be front of mind with these partners. I would call that being a partner of choice. Now, Sandrine mentioned that I'm currently working with Accenture, for example. And in Accenture, we've designed a program called the Preferred Provider Program. And what it recognizes is that the major software enabling technologies, be it Blue Prism, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, TIBCO, ServiceNow, Snowflake, SaaS, etc. All these enabling technologies, Workday, all these enabling technologies, they have a choice. They can work with Accenture, they can work with Wipro, they can work with Infosys, they can work with Capgemini. They have a choice. And so what Accenture have recognized is they need a system which allows them to be the preferred provider. So that when, let's say, a Workday account executive is talking to a Workday customer or is talking to a customer about a major Workday implementation or a major upgrade, they immediately recommend Accenture as the partner to work with. That's a classic alliance sale. Now, I mentioned the Accenture Preferred Provider Program because it works the other way as well. If you are a software or a hardware vendor, so I know Frank hasn't been with Tricentis for that long, but we can imagine that Tricentis is a software company. Frank's goal, I'm presuming, in part, will be to establish Tricentis as the preferred partner for those SI, GSI, and advisory companies. Hence, it would be useful if Tricentis had a preferred partner program. And again, the VST methodology lends itself to being able to scale and systematize that kind of an approach.
I can rephrase that, Mike. They usually, when I deal with global SIs, they always tell me that they are agnostic. And the answer that I provide is, you are agnostic, and that's fair. My job is to place some conviction that our solution could be the one that fit your requirement and make your customer project a success.
Yeah.
So converting agnosticism to conviction.
Yeah. I mentioned that I worked for this gentleman called Patrick Nicolay many years ago. And one of the first major arguments, we had many arguments, believe me, many arguments. But one of the first major arguments we had was when Patrick Nicolay said, Capgemini is agnostic. And I said, no, you're not. He said, yes, we are. I said, no, you're not. And he got very upset. And I said, tell me how many Microsoft certified consultants you have working for Capgemini. And at the time, he said, around about 16,000. I said, okay, tell me how many SAP certified consultants you've got working for Capgemini. He said about 18,000. I said, okay, what happens if you don't use SAP or you don't use Microsoft? He said, well, we can't use them. I said, of course. So that means that you have to find Microsoft and SAP work. So you're not agnostic. You have a preference. You have a preferred series of software companies that you work with. He didn't exactly agree with me, but he went away grumbling, which was the best I ever got from Patrick. It sounds like I didn't like him. I actually liked this guy a hell of a lot. He was a really great guy to work with. So
I do not work directly for Patrick, but I work with Jean-Claude Violet, the one who handed over.
yeah.
And the other sentence that I usually said is that 100% of their business is based on external solution. So of course they could be agnostic, but all the business they do are with software vendor or hardware vendor.
Yeah. So let's talk about optimizing alliances. So let's imagine you have an alliance relationship, or you've been asked to create some alliance relationships. So in generic terms, in basic terms, step one is identify the stage of the alliance relationship, and therefore the best practices that are relevant at that stage. The first mistake that most people make, or that many people make, is that they think there's a definite list of alliance best practices and they all apply all the time. That's not true. The concept of alliance best practice in one case is a maturity spectrum. It's a degree of maturity of organization. So for example, when Frank and I were working at Capgemini, there was probably somewhere in the region of 400 or 500 people working in alliances. And the alliance function had been established for 10 years, and that was 20 years ago. Now, if I were to say to Sandrine, Varicent, how established is the alliances function? How many people do you have working in alliances? I'd be surprised if she said more than one, more than myself, So the things that are best practice for Capgemini or for an organization of that size and that maturity. So for example, a centralized team, a centralized alliance operations manager, a partner relationship management platform, regular alliance training. All those things are best practice and they're all appropriate, but they're appropriate for an organization which is much bigger or much more mature than Varicent is currently. The current problems that Varicent have got are a different set of problems, and the different set of problems are typically we have a number of relationships. We've started them opportunistically, and now somebody, it looks like it's Sandrine, has got the job of trying to pull some kind of shape together to that group of partnerships. We want structure, we want consistency, we want predictability, we want governance models, we want contracts that we don't have to rewrite every time we get a new partnership. We want a process, we want to understand the sales cycle of alliances and when we can expect revenue to be flowing so that we can plan our resources. And it may well be the same for Avalara. I don't know, Elizabeth, whether that's the same case at Avalara. Pretty much, yeah? So step one is...
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So step one is, what level of relationship are we at? And what VST will give you is a way of scoring that relationship on a scale of 0 to 100. We'll come back to how we score it later, but it will give you a sense of both the maturity, the development, and the effectiveness of your alliance program generally. But you can also use it to measure an individual alliance relationship. So as I was saying at the beginning, you might want to pick a particular relationship and use this approach with that relationship. And before you do anything, before you start to try and improve anything, measure what you've got now. And there's a very good reason for doing that. Forgive me, it's a very pragmatic reason. It's so that you can go to your boss and say, hey, boss, this is what it looks like now. The score is 25. I would like to give myself a target of making that 25 score 35 in 12 months' time. That's a simple thing that you can go to your boss and say. Now, when your boss says to you, well, what's the difference between 25 and 35? Then you can start to explain that the 25 and 35 score is a best practice score. But we know from all the research and all the practice, and Frank knows it, and other experienced alliance managers know it, the more best practices you use and the better you use them, the more money you make, the greater the revenue. It's a very, very simple equation. Best practice equals best results. So as your best practice score goes up, your revenue will go up. But it's a fantastic shorthand way of being able to have a, what do they call it, a water cooler conversation. You bump into your boss, or you bump into your boss's boss on your way to the water cooler, or on your way back from the water cooler, and he says, hey, how's the Capgemini relationship going? Or how's the Accenture relationship going? And you can say, when we started out 3 months ago, it was at 25. Currently, it's at 30. By the end of this year, it'll be at 35. That's a good story. That's a good, simple, predictable story. Now, whether you're talking about an alliance program, which is a combination of alliances, or whether you're talking about a single alliance relationship, you can use the same methodology to show that improvement. So step one is measurement. Where are we now? Step two is, where would we like to be? What's the art of the possible? Where could we be? And you can use the Alliance Best Practice database and the materials that you get access to help you with that. What happens if you improve your score from 25 to 35? Well, it depends whether you're talking about a program or an individual alliance relationship. But if you're talking about an individual alliance relationship, the improvement in revenue could be anywhere between 250 and 650% within about 12 months, depending on what the original score was. So if the original score was low, then your chances of showing high success are much better because you can put a lot of things right. If the original score was relatively high, then you don't have the same opportunity of putting things right because a lot of the things are already working right. So you have a very, very simple 3-step or 3-phase, as I would call it, process. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? And that, in essence, is the VST methodology. So we've talked about an alliance sale and what it needs to be successful. It needs to be integrated. It needs to be coherent. It needs to be valuable. It needs to be proactive and joint. So ideally for software vendors, so for example, Varicent, the nirvana, the holy grail for Varicent would be Accenture saying, we would like to embed Varicent in a solution that we will sell to major clients all around the world. And we will support that by setting up a Varicent practice with a dozen, 15, 20 Accenture people trained in the Varicent technology. That would be the kind of end shining goal. The question is, how do you get there over what period of time? And equally with Avalara, I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I don't know enough about Avalara to be able to make the same comparison, but I'm assuming that the same goal would be in your mind as well.
Yeah, I can just, for everyone out in the group as well.
Sure.
So Avalara handles tax compliance automation. We're definitely the market leader. We have over, I think, 800 pre-built integrations. So basically we have an alliance relationship with every single, ISV, SI that you can think of.
Right. Okay.
We're almost like $1 billion company. We have significant operations in the UK as well. So yeah, just to offer some context.
Okay.
As to what we do and who we work with.
So that gives me the opportunity of showing, or hopefully illustrating, another valuable aspect of this training. If we think about specific GSIs, for example, just for the moment, there are a number of GSIs who are aware of VST. So I mentioned Accenture and I mentioned Capgemini. The other ones I'd mention would be Infosys, Wipro, Cognizant, Deloitte, EY, Tieto, which is a Scandinavian regional player, Tech Mahindra. So a number of GSIs. Now, once you've been through the course, once you've been through the training, once you feel confident, should you wish, I can approach those organizations in a defined geography. And I can say, hey, Neil Sanderson at Accenture, you're responsible for Europe. Varisant would like to conduct a VST exercise with you. Would you like to do that? Now, because he knows what VST is, and because he knows that it generates more revenue for the SI or the GSI, his usual reaction is going to be, yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. So when you've been through the course, or when you're ready, when you feel confident enough to be able to use the process, I'm quite happy to introduce you to other VST users so that you can practice this with live prospective partners. Okay, these are just some examples of where we've used VST before. I just pulled some of these out and I tried to make them as different as possible. So it's not just Accenture and NetApp, for example, that would be a fairly typical one, a GSI and a vendor, but it's also Google Cloud and HPE, it's Intel and Google Chrome, it's all these other things. So it works. Let's move on to the ABP framework. ABP, by the way, when I use the words ABP, it means Alliance Best Practice, just so that everybody's aware. So when I started out back in 2002, everybody wanted to talk to me about best practices in alliances. And I kept saying, okay, where's the list? Where is the list of best practices? Who has compiled those best practices into a workbook, into something that I can use? And the simple answer was nobody had. So I started doing that myself. So I went to a large number of, I launched a thing called ASAP in Europe, ASAP. That's the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals, ASAP. And I launched in March 2002. And we ran some meetings. We got some alliance people together and we talked about what works in alliances, what leads to success. And so because of that, I started to create what I called a list of success factors, things which lead to commercial success in alliance relationships. And then after a short period of time, probably about 9 months, I realized that some of these success factors were repeating on a regular basis. They weren't just happening in the UK, they were happening in France or Germany or the US. They weren't just happening in smaller organizations, they were happening in bigger organizations as well. They were consistent or they were common. So I call these things the common success factors, CSF. So then I had a hypothesis that I could take to market. I went to my first client, which happened to be BT, British Telecom, and I said, I think I can predict which of your alliance relationships are commercially successful and which ones are less successful. And so they gave me the chance to do that. And what I did was I measured the CSFs, the common success factors. And my hypothesis was the better the best practice usage, the higher the commercial value. And that's exactly how it proved. And that's exactly how it's been proved ever since. And if you think about it, that's just a reflection of absolute common sense. Common sense is, well, the Alliance best practice framework, or any best practice framework, if you were to ask me to define it, I would say systematized common sense, learning from what has palpably worked in the past, but making a system out of it. And that's all I've done. I've made a system out of common sense in alliances. So these are the original CSFs that you can see on the screen. So each one of these things contributes to success in alliance relationships. Now, when I'd compile my list of these things, there are 52 on this list here. When I compile my list, I noticed that some of them fell into certain categories. So I started to categorize them into commercial, technical, strategic, cultural, and operational. Now, this is the original list, the 52-point list. Typically, my clients these days use what I would call an alliance-bound scorecard. They use a list of 25. They focus on 5 things in each of these areas. So they end up looking at 25 things, and that's more than enough to show a significant degree of commercial improvement. But this is what VST is built on. It's built on common sense and best practice. Okay? Any questions around the CSFs or best practice or where it's come from? In fact, any questions at all at this point? We all okay? Gives me a chance to get a gulp of Earl Grey tea. Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
something we can add to your matrix is co-innovation. I don't know where that's.
So innovation for me, Frank, comes here on the operational area. Now, it's like any framework. You could argue that innovation should be in the strategic column, maybe, or it should be in the cultural column, maybe. But I have to put it somewhere.
What is the meaning of what do you put beside the innovation for operational?
The reason I put innovation in operational is that, to me, if an alliance is going to be successful, an alliance for me is not a deal, it's a relationship. And the alliance as a relationship delivers the deals. So if that alliance is going to continue to deliver deals into the future, it has to reinvent itself regularly. It has to keep up with the market. It has to refresh its offerings. Hence, it needs to have innovation as part of its operating model here. That's why I would put it in the operational column. But it's a framework. You know, you can argue that it could be somewhere else. Okay.
But are you with French people? It can take time.
Okay. So here's the best practices. So one of your first jobs as an alliance manager is, with your major relationship that you're focusing this on, is to achieve what I would call alliance alignment. And by that, I mean both sides viewing the relationship in the same way, at the same level. Imagine that one partner scores the relationship as 25 out of 100 in terms of alliance maturity and effectiveness, and the other partner scores it at 80 out of 100. There's a big mismatch in perception. So to try and get some kind of action plan to improve the relationship is very, very difficult, because one side thinks a lot of things are going wrong and the other side thinks very little is going wrong. So before you start an action plan to start generating leads and start improving the relationship, you need to get alignment first, both seeing it in broadly the same way. And that's why you do the measurement as stage one. So I'll give you the measurement tool. I'll give you access to the database at the end of this session, and you can try out the measurement tool. The measurement tool, the benchmarking tool, is very, very simple. It goes through the either the 52 or more likely the 25 CSFs, and it turns them into a question. So for example, no, go back. So here's the 52 CSFs. So let's pick one at random. Let's say we take trust. Trust is a best practice. If trust is in existence, the relationship will perform better. So think in your head, think about one of your major relationships that you want to use this process on, and imagine what is the level of trust in that relationship on a scale of 0 to 100. Now, whatever number you come up with, imagine that your partner has a much different number. Suddenly, you've got a problem in that area because one side feels the level of trust is high, so they're sharing information, they're expecting certain things to happen, they're acting in a certain way, and the other side thinks it's much less high, so they're being much more guarded with the information. They're not sharing that information, which doesn't allow both sides to make the best decisions, which gets in the way of good communication, which etc., etc., etc. So step one is to get alliance alignment so that both sides are seeing it from the same perspective. And your stage one alliance benchmarking tool will give you a tool to measure each of these things, or whichever ones you choose. You don't have to measure them all. You can develop a benchmarking system of 10 things, 2 in each category, or maybe 15, 3 in each category. As I say, many of my clients at the moment are using 5 by 5. But alliance alignment is very important. Now, the next thing to talk about is the alliance maturity model and why it's important. We talk about alliances, but let's for a moment talk about partnerships. So in the Alliance Best Practice Framework, the big picture is partnerships. And partnerships can be any kind of business-to-business relationship, which isn't a customer or a supplier. It could be a distributor, it could be a reseller, it could be etc., etc., etc. All those different words you've heard to describe lots and lots of different kinds of partnerships. But alliances is a particular kind of partnership. An alliance partnership is one which typically has a high degree of interaction between both parties. There's a lot of conversation going on, there's a lot of information being shared, there's a lot of trust involved in the relationship. Typically, it involves sell with models rather than sell to or sell through. Typically, also, it's complex because you're selling multiple products, or you're selling products in multiple geographies, multiple countries, or both. So if you're in charge of alliances, for example, so Sandrine and Elizabeth, it's a good idea to have an understanding of where each of your current partnerships lie. And here's a generic scale: 4, 3, 2, 1. Level 4, tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. So level 4 is transactional. Varicent has some good software. Our partner wants to use that software and they want to buy it from Varicent to resell it in their activities with their clients. That's fine. You don't need to think about trust. You don't need to think about senior executive support. You don't need to know the strategy of the other organization. They just want to buy it from you. So if the price is right, absolutely. Of course, we'll sell it and you resell it. Great. Now, the level above that in terms of collaboration is enhanced, where a partner will come to, let's say, Varicent again and say, instead of the base offering, instead of the off-the-shelf offering, we have certain knowledge of an industry or a client or a particular type of business or a particular business problem. And we think, Varicent, that if you'll allow us to input some information, we could create a manufacturing specific offering or an automotive specific offering or a Unilever specific offering or whatever, but it's something which is enhanced. And notice that it's the partner coming to you and helping you to improve a particular aspect of your product or service. So what's happened is the degree of collaboration has gone up, but also notice the value has gone up because now you can charge more for that solution because it's not a technical solution anymore. It's not a simple standard out of the box solution. It's one specific to those customer needs, which means it's more valuable and therefore you can charge more money for it. Now imagine that you've got such a relationship, you've got an organization that's worked with you on a particular product, and they want to do it again with a different product. So now you're going to another level of relationship, which is collaborative, meaning that you don't just want to talk about one product line or one product area, you want to talk about multiple areas or multiple countries. And to do that, you need a joined up plan. You need a strategy. You need to put more energy into it. You need to put more effort into it. And the degree of collaboration has gone up. And then finally, you've got the top level, which is the highest level of relationship that you can have, which is a fully committed, shared risk, shared reward relationship with that particular partner. So what you have is a maturity model of relationships. Now, the beauty when you measure your alliance relationships in the very first stage is that you'll get a score, somewhere between 0 and 100. And if the score is 0 to 25, it's likely to be in the transactional area. If the score is 25 to 50, it's likely to be in the enhanced area. 50 to 75, collaborative, 75 plus, full partnership. Not only will you get a score, but you can download from the Alliance Best Practice website, not just the 52 best practices, the 52 CSFs, but which 13 are particularly relevant at this level. So you don't have to concentrate on all 52 all the time. This is the point I was making earlier, that best practices are best practice at that point in time. So there are 13 generally best practices that are applicable here, and there's a further 13 here. So when a partner says to you, we'd like to make the journey from here to here, you can say to them, well, the 13 things we need to look at here to make sure we're doing this well first are these and these and these and these and these. And then the further 13 things we need to work on are these and these and these and these and these. You have a plan. You have a structure. You can move them up this pyramid. Now, I'm currently working with a client who doesn't have this kind of structure. And there was a huge light bulb moment for them when they realized that what this methodology does is it allows you to turn partnerships into alliances. So don't run away with the idea that you'll have lots and lots and lots of alliances and very few partnerships. It won't work like that. The reason this shape is a triangle is because you will always have more of these than you will have of these. And you'll always have more of these than you will of these. And you'll always have more of these than you will of these. So as a very simple example, Microsoft, for example, has got, I can't remember what the latest number is, but I think it's in excess of 500,000 partnerships worldwide. but they've only got 13 at tier 1. So of those, yes, Andrew.
It's a question of semantics. I don't know if it's lost in translations because I'm French, but I'm trying to define in my head the difference between alliances, partnerships, channels, in a very simple layman terms. So
Yeah.
I can relate that to my sales team, not
Yeah.
my team, my sellers, my regional sales managers, my BDRs, to
Yeah.
explain what, because they all refer to partners as resellers, which gives me hives. Resellers are not partnerships to me in my head, so it would really help me.
Okay, so I can do a one-to-one session with you if you wish, and we can go into that in more detail. But my simple answer would be that if I were you, I would show them this triangle, and I would say all our business-to-business relationships fall somewhere on this triangle. Those are called partnerships. These are called transactional partnerships. These are called enhanced partnerships. These are called collaborative, and these are called full partnership. Now, alliances are 1 and 2. There's a line that goes across here. And so what I mean by alliances is 1 and 2. Now, if they then say, well, what does that mean in practical terms? Then you can talk about the fact that alliances are generally bigger, they're generally more complex, they're generally more valuable, they generally take more effort, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if they want a very, very simple picture, this is your picture. These two are, channel relationships. These are resellers. These are regional or tactically important partnerships, and these are strategic alliances. That's how I would describe it.
If I may complement, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
For me, resell is a transaction. So it's just a pure contract pass through, and resell is just transactional. Channel, where you are engaging with channel, everything is indirect sales. It's how to sell better, faster, and so on. So direct sell is overlay practice, so you can call it that way, but you definitely the way you make business are end customers, not channel, not alliances, or the sell to, but we don't care in this meeting about the sell to. Channel, you are talking to salespeople, and salespeople want to resell your technology, place your technology to the end customer. When you are dealing with GSIs, you are talking to engineers. So they are fan of technology, and they want to be sure that your technology will be the good one that fits with their customer needs. And also for them, the beauty to integrate your solution into a special context. So that's the beauty of alliances. Partnership, for me, it's a story of a day. When you get an alliance, you just need a ring. So you are supposed to be loyal each other, and you are engaged together. An alliance is a more advanced than a partnership. Partnership is a project story. Alliance is more a governance, recurrent meetings, and so on. You're engaged at larger scale. That's my experience, but maybe it's a pure semantic.
No, I don't think it's semantics. I think it's important, if the organization is going to talk about partnering and alliances and channels, it's important that they all use the same words and mean the same thing. So one of the downloads, give me 24 hours, because there's 4 or 5, well, there's probably best part of 8 of you that I need to put on the system. But when you're on the system, you'll be able to download what's called the Alliance Best Practice Taxonomy. And it's basically a dictionary of definitions. And it gives you some standard definitions. Now, you can adapt those definitions, or you can change them if you wish. But the important thing is that the whole organization has a book of definitions that they can look at. So exactly as Frank just said, if you define alliances as just this one, that's fine, as long as the rest of the organization does that. My definition would put it here. Now, like everything, it's not binary. You don't suddenly switch from a cat to a dog overnight. For example, there is a gray area. So you have some partnerships at an enhanced level, which are high on this level and are almost an alliance. So the graduation, the growth, the maturity, the development of the relationship goes through these 4 levels. And that's how it moves up the scale.
Mike, are you able to, the description you just gave following Sandrine's question, can you just add that in the best practices on the website? Or can you repeat it just quickly again, like the comparisons that you were doing?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I would go back to this. I've used this very, very simple, deceptively simple model many times, and it's helped people to understand the distinction. So when you look at a partner tiering model or a partner segmentation model, very often those models are not very useful because they talk about gold, silver, bronze. And what that means is the people that do the most business with us are gold level, the next people are silver, and the people that do the least amount of business with us are bronze. That doesn't really tell you anything about the nature of the relationship. It's telling you about the money. Now, there's 2 things going on. One is relationship and one is revenue. As I said earlier, you can have a really, really, really valuable relationship, which is a reseller relationship, which isn't an alliance. If somebody else is selling your products and services and you don't have to do much work, and if the margin that you're enjoying is good, then keep quiet and let them do it, because that's good for you. But that's not reality. Reality is that to get the big deals and to get the valuable opportunities from partners and with partners, you have to put in effort. And so one of the ways you use this triangle is measuring effort. Low effort, high effort. But it's also measuring the nature of the relationship. And the nature of the relationship is defined for me by the amount of collaboration. In a transactional relationship or in a transactional partnership, the degree of collaboration is low. Both sides don't collaborate together. They don't share a lot of information. They don't trust each other. They don't regard trust as important. They're just buying from each other or selling to each other. But as you go up the scale here, oops, I've lost my point. As you go up the scale, the degree of collaboration goes up. So this is definitely not an alliance, and this is definitely an alliance. Now, the definition that you employ, I would suggest, is dependent on the degree of active collaboration. And so for me, levels 1 and 2 on this model are alliances, and levels 3 and 4 are not, because of the degree of collaboration. Now, this is a model, or this is a way of thinking that you can test for yourself in your own organizations. So after this, and when you download the slides, think about your own relationships that you're currently managing, assuming you've got more than one. And ask yourself, use the assessment tool that we're going to use in stage 1, and assess 2 relationships and see what the scores are. I am willing to bet that the relationship that scores higher is bringing you more money than the relationship that scores lower. And
1,000.
all I'm giving you here is a simple system for being able to reflect visually where those partnerships lie in maturity terms. So if you measure one and it scores 15, then you put a cross here. If you measure another and it scores 40, you put a cross here. If you measure another one and it scores 80, you put a cross here. It's a simple way. It will take you about 15 minutes per relationship. And you can go back to your boss, or you can go back to your executive leadership team and say, hey guys, what kind of partnerships do we want? Do we want lots and lots and lots of low transactional type partnerships? And the advantage of that is that it's low effort, but the drawback is that each of the relationships don't bring us very much. Or do we want a small number of very, very large alliance partners who bring us a lot of business? The advantage to that is we'll get a lot of business, but the drawback is it will take us a heck of a lot of effort. Now, the reality is, of course, that your executive leadership team will probably come back to you and say, well, you need to recommend to us what is the best combination on this triangle. And what I'm trying to show visually here is it's a triangle for a good reason. You will always have more of these than these. You will always have more of these than these, and you'll always have more of these than these. Okay. Sorry, I'm conscious of time, and I'm not sure whether people have got other meetings to rush to. But let me simply show you. There's a scoring system that we talked about. So 0 to 25. These are the things you need to focus on. 25 to 50. These are the things you need to focus on. 50 to 75. These are the things you need to focus on, etc., etc. Why are alliance sales different? Well, basically, alliance sales are different because typically they're a sell with. This is just a sample from the database. This is work I've done over the last 20 years with my client and the partner. So Capgemini features fairly heavily, as you can see. And basically, we measured the situation at the beginning. And the situation at the beginning was typically a target. So if we look at Microsoft and TELUS, for example, TELUS is a telecoms provider based in Canada. The target for joint business for this relationship was $12 million. That shouldn't be a euro, that should be a dollar sign because it was Canadian dollars. 12 million Canadian dollars in one particular year. So we said, okay, let's measure the relationship. When we measured the relationship, we found the score was quite low in best practice terms. It's around about 30, 35 out of 100. So I was able to say, this relationship is capable of much more revenue, because there's lots of things that you're not doing that you could be doing, which will bring in more money. So they said, okay, you've measured us. Some things we're doing okay. Which ones are we not doing? Or which ones are holding us back from earning the extra money? So we put together an alliance optimization plan, an annual alliance optimization plan, and we picked off 7 or 8 things which we should focus on to earn more money. And instead of earning $12 million that year, they earned $42 million that year. Now I can talk about any of the other examples as we go through, but the logic is the same with your relationships. It doesn't matter whether you're earning $12 million or $100,000 or £50,000 or dollars or euros. You want to get 2 numbers in the first stage. The first stage is, where are we now? And you're looking for 2 numbers. One number is the commercial value of that relationship to you. How much money are you earning from that relationship? And then the second number is the best practice score. And if your best practice score is below 50 out of 100, then you can earn more money. But also it helps you with prioritizing, because none of us have got enough time. So if you've got 4 or 5 relationships and you're wondering which one to focus on, then you would do this exercise on all 4 or 5. It will take you about 15 minutes per relationship. And depending on the best practice score, will show you where there's the greatest potential for improvement. Does that make sense? Yeah, you all get it. Good. Good. So the framework allows you to benchmark your alliances so that you know where you are now. It also helps you to focus in on the CSFs, the causes, the causal success factors. If you go into a meeting with your boss, or if you are presenting to your board, and your board says, we want more revenue, we want more partner revenue, just remember to remind them that revenue from partners is an effect, not a cause. A cause of the revenue are things like trust, senior executive support, clarity of common vision, joint business value propositions. These are the causes of success. So when you're putting together your action plan, don't talk about an action plan that says, we're currently doing 10 million, we need to do 50 million, let's just earn the extra money, because that's an effect. Put together an action plan that says, we're going to improve trust, or we're going to improve the degree of senior executive support, or we're going to improve the degree of commitment that our partner has to us, or we're going to improve the technical training that our partner has so that they understand our products better. Focus on the causes of success. A causal plan. So this is the 6-stage process. So stage 1 is benchmarking. What are we trying to, where are we now? Then you have stage 2, which is visioning, where could we be? And then you have stage 3, which is executing. How do we get there? For each individual alliance relationship. And then the other 3 stages, 4, 5, and 6, we can talk about later in the course. That's about expansion and scope and growing and expanding. But for now, just focus your thinking around stages 1, 2, and 3. Where are we now? Where could we be? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? And also focus your thinking around alignment. It's not enough for you to say, we want to be here, here, and here with Accenture, or at Capgemini, or DXC, or a regional SI, or whoever. Or it's not enough for Avalara to say, we want to be here, here, and here with NTT Data, or whoever it is. Those are your requirements. That's what you want. What you're trying to achieve with these stages is alignment. You want to document where both sides agree that where they both want to be is here and here and here and here. Now, as I say, we'll have an hour-long training on each of these stages in detail. So I'll take you through each stage to show you what you have to do for each one. Okay? You don't need to know about that. How do you get started? Well, essentially, what you should be doing between now and the next session is thinking about a relationship to pilot this on. If you're going to go to your executive leadership team and say, I'd like to follow a consistent approach, I believe that the best way of doing it is by running a pilot, a proof of concept pilot. So pick a partner that you think might be amenable to this approach. Pick a scope that is reasonable. Don't try and do a global scope because there's too many people involved. Pick an individual country, or pick an individual product line, or pick an individual situation. Narrow the scope, so you're narrowing the key stakeholders. And then as we go through each stage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then you can get the information you need to be able to run each of those stages. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm still sharing my slide. Right. So questions? Elizabeth looks like she's got a question. She's
Thank you. I thought this was already really beneficial, so I'm looking forward to learning more. Is this meant to be, it's weekly then at this same time every week, or?
that's what I was going to discuss with you now. I think it would be beneficial if we made it regular enough so that there's a degree of momentum and there's a degree of consistency in the situation. But I recognize that once a week may be too difficult for you. And also there will be activities that you'll want to perform in between each of the different sessions. So maybe we want to think about once every 2 weeks. But I would strongly recommend that we agree a particular time on a particular day and agree when the future sessions are going to be so that you can plan them in your diaries. Now, each session will be recorded. So if you miss the session, you can watch the recording, but it's never as good as hearing it first time. So my suggestion will be, I'll reach out to all of you after this to ask you, do you want it to be once every 2 weeks, once a week, or once a month? I'll work to your requirements. But remember, if you make it once a month, we're talking about a training course that will last over 6 months from now. That to me is not quick enough. It's not dynamic enough to be of use to you. The right kind of timescale feels like either weekly or once every 2 weeks. Sorry, Elizabeth, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say maybe we can vote, but I'll input my opinion, which is I think it's manageable to do once a week. And that way, to your point, there's momentum, but if that doesn't work for everyone and on occasion, we have to space it out once every week and a half or 2 weeks.
Okay.
I can do that, but I would rather stick to the weekly.
Me too.
All right.
I
Well,
second that.
okay. Well, let's say then that it's once a week from now on, every Tuesday at the same time. So it's 4 o'clock till 5 o'clock UK time, which is not too bad, I hope, for Frank. 5 o'clock till 6 in.
To have a UK time, that will be difficult as I'm French, but I can manage that.
But hopefully it works for all you guys. And also, there are guys who are meant to be.
The sooner I get the time frame, the sooner I can book the slots. Because of course I could have a customer meeting, a more emergency daily basis. But the sooner I get the momentum, the sooner I can book. And as we could have some travel ban, could be easier to maintain a weekly basis.
Okay, I'll send you all a meeting request, which is a repeating meeting once a week, every Tuesday, 4 till 5 UK time, and then we'll.
And if you can share your deck. Actually,
sure.
Just to redo, because the video will take more than an hour. You are talking like a French, my dear.
Yeah, no problem, Frank. Thanks, guys. And if you have any questions at all, just contact me directly. I'm quite happy to take a call. If it's a 5-10 minute video call, that's absolutely fine. If you don't understand something, that's great. One of the things
you're Canadian, you speak French?
Not very well. I can understand it, but I'm pretty slow.
No, for Elizabeth, as you are Canadian.
There you
next
go.
time, Mike, we have to go French.
Oh no.
Bah, si.
One of the things, just on a slightly serious note, one of the things I was thinking about was if it would help. If it would help, I mean, you've paid for the training, but for you to be effective, your partner has to agree to this. So if you choose a partnership that you want to improve at this early stage, I think it would be okay if you invited your partner manager from that organization to attend the course with you so that they're getting the same information, because that will help with alignment.
From the partner or in our organization?
Well, I was thinking from the partner, Frank, because I'm hoping that you're going to use the system, so you're going to use it with a particular partner.
Mhm.
And therefore the partner needs to understand what's involved. It's a different question if, as I know you have, Frank, you've moved into a new organization. I'm pretty sure that Tricentis won't have a systematic alliance sales methodology. So you may wish to introduce it to your colleagues, and that's fine, but that's a different question. That's an internal thing. I'm thinking about you as individuals and how you're going to show value from this exercise. And the fact that we're running these sessions, an hour for me is an hour for me. I don't mind if there's 4 people on the call or 8 people on the call. That doesn't affect me tremendously.
Do you mean for the
Yeah.
duration of the course, or just at the end as a workshop?
Sorry, say again, Sandrine.
Did you mean for the duration of the course, or just at the end of the course for a workshop
No,
session?
I meant for the duration of
The duration. Okay.
yeah,
Well, that's
duration of the course.
interesting. Okay. My partner I have in mind is very, very abrupt, and their cultural, they have strong cultural differences and may come across as very abrupt and sometimes rude. It would worry me.
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, one of the major areas, as you saw, that we look at is cultural,
Yeah.
the cultural dimension, I would call it. You have these different dimensions. You have the commercial dimension, the technical, the strategic, the cultural, the operational.
Mhm.
It's fine if different organizations have different cultures. They still both want to earn money. They still want to work with each other. They still want to earn good money. Think about it. As I say, I am relaxed. If you wanted to introduce, it would probably be the key relationship manager, the person you speak to most often in that partner, to attend the course. But you're able to offer them something of value. You know, normally I would charge those people to attend, but you've already paid, and I want to be sure that you get every chance of making sure you're successful in using it.
Mhm.
So if that means we invite your partner or a key stakeholder from your partner to be aware of what's going on, and that makes it easier for you to do it. Okay, Frank. Then that's absolutely fine. Think about it. Okay, I'll send you a meeting invite, repeating meeting Tuesday, 4 till 5 UK time, each Tuesday for the next 6 Tuesdays. Thanks a lot for your time, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely meeting you
Thank
guys.
you. Likewise. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.
See you, Mike. Wish you the best for the next Rugby World Cup.
Thank you, Mike. That was
Thanks,
super
Frank.
enlightening. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, Sandrine.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Au revoir.